published 3 times. It's published 3 times in a year, and it focuses on critical engagement with theory and practice of education in the Global South context. The journal hence caters to both reflective practitioners and scholars of education. We believe the distinction is anyway more pragmatic than epistemic. Policymakers are also among the readers of CED. The journal publishes 3 analytical articles, one special article on teacher education, since we want to encourage robust research in this sector, especially in the Global South context, 4 book reviews, and an end piece, which is generally a short reflective essay on any current issue. I'm happy to expand on this later. Back to you, Manjuma.
Thank you. And the other panelists, you can just jump in.
I can go next. Yeah. Thanks, Manjuma. It's an honor to be here and looking forward to learnings. As you said, Comparative Education Studies, it's a flagship journal of a society, Comparative Education Society of India, which is active in Global South since 2010. Every year we have conferences, international conferences. We are very new. We are just like a latest entry in education journals. Our first issue came out in 2024 and our 4th issue just got released in June. We are a biannual journal, so one comes out in June and another comes out in December. Before I talk of the scholarship that we promote, I think I want to just talk about why do we need a journal at the first place? You know, what is the need of a journal? And over there, I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge that we need spaces for dialogue, discussion, and to have a community of thinkers, which can start from academic circles, but shouldn't just be contained within it. It must be oriented towards the world. So what is an orientation of a journal is a question that all journals have in their mind. For us, our orientation is that we do wish to locate ourselves in the world and then see that what is the theory building that can happen. And I feel post-Frankfurt School, that question has become very important, where theory building is not just a question of happening in ivory towers and just for the academics, but it's something which is like located in the world. In terms of scholarship, there are 3 locations in which comparative education studies can be located. The first is we are located in the intellectual ecosystem of Global South, which by its very name, comparative education, becomes important. The fact that theory building just doesn't happen in North, it happens in South also. So these are the knowledges that we wish to promote further. And that brings the second location, which is education doesn't happen in silos. We need to engage with other disciplines also. So we do invite pieces from other disciplines also, other disciplines of social sciences, and let's see how we can generate knowledges and everything. Third, which Maithili just pointed out, education, we have a lot of stakeholders. It's not just the scholars. We have policymakers, teachers, civil society initiatives, so, think tanks. These are the spaces which become important where a discussion and a dialogue can happen across. In terms of the structure of the journal, we invite research articles, commentary, and book reviews. Commentary is an interesting space where we are also open to movie reviews, interviews, dialogues, discussions, those kinds of things. Also, it's an open access journal. The fact that we are encouraging knowledge generation and we believe in it, so there are no payment gateways. So it's an open access.
I think that would be the USP of the comparative CESI journal. Thank you. Can we hear from Professor Sakat and Professor Yefi?
Should I go first, Yefi? All right. Our journal, Journal of International Cooperation in Education, I think in a way similar to other 2 journals that I introduced, that we are promoting some untapped knowledge generation especially from the Global South. Because our journal kind of problematizes that the international educational landscape where the knowledge has been generated predominantly by the North or the West So we especially welcome contributions and submissions from the voices from the global south or lower and middle income countries. In terms of the themes that we emphasize is the covers include education and international development, comparative education, international cooperation in education, that sort of area. So different from CESC, was it, and the Jyoti's journal. We are pretty much focused on education and development. In order to kind of promote the scholarship and the voices from low and middle income countries, we are also open access journal freely available, so that the scholarship can reach wider world. So that's kind of one big character of feature of the JICE Journal of International Cooperation in Education. We also hold writers workshop a few times a year, welcoming students, early career scholars, those who haven't sort of published quite a lot to kind of get to know what the academic publishing or writing looks like, and how and then we kind of walk through the writers workshop participants with the writers workshop participants until the submission stage, to sort of give advice and feedback along the process. So that's also another sort of selling point of JICE. I'll stop here and pass it on to Yifei.
Yeah, thanks, Nozomi. And also, many thanks for the invitation from Manjuma in the first place for me to join such a wonderful dialogue. So I am here, as Manjuma introduced, representing the journal Teaching Public Administration. So I think like maybe I would just start by specifying the scope of the journal, which is slightly different in the sense that we mainly focus on a higher education for the reason that, as you know, like public administration as a discipline is mostly taught in the higher education settings, right? Maybe there are some exceptions out there as well, but mostly the focus is on the either the higher education institutions or just the public sector organizations in general. So if you go back to the journal website and also check some of the recent publications, so you will see that mainly the focus is on how public administration and related disciplines such as public management or communication, conflict management, participation, and so on and so forth. So how are these subjects taught at the higher education settings? But more broadly speaking, we are interested in how knowledges and skills are transmitted and acquired in the public sector, which is why I think it's especially important to bring the journal into the dialogue here. And also, if you look at the index of the of the journal, you will see that it's actually indexed both for the public administration discipline and the educational studies discipline, which kind of like echoes the other editors also mentioned about the multidisciplinary or interdisciplinarity, right? Meaning that we do need the insights from the educational studies or like maybe the scholarship and the literature there to help better understand the public administration challenges and the teaching and learning and vice versa as well. So the other thing that I want to emphasize is, again, I think which is I see as a commonality across the journals is that we are also interested in the debates of interest and of importance for both the teachers and the learners, and also both the policymakers and the scholars and the practitioners. So, and also I would say that this is actually quite unique for our journal, is that within, at least within the public administration setting, you will see that we are the only, we and the other journal are the only two journals available that is specifically dedicated for this kind of scholarship that I just described. And even though like we are originally, so we are still kind of global north based because the organization that hosts it is the UK Association for Public Administration. But if you again look at the recent publications, so we are increasingly making an explicit effort to invite the like global south submissions. And even recently, we just organized a special issue on the decolonization of the public administration pedagogy. And hopefully the special issue will be published, I think the first issue in next year. And we will also welcome three types of submissions. So in addition to original research, we also publish book review. And also another section that is recently introduced this year is the comments and reflections, even though so far that particular section is by invitation only. And lastly, so which I hope is a good news, and in a sense of like expanding the scope of the conversation, is that originally we published 3 issues per year, but starting from this year onwards, there will be 4 issues. So we just published, I think, the second issue, and then there are 2 more remaining issues to go. So yeah, that's mainly what the Teaching Public Administration Journal is about, and what scholarship we are looking forward to. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think we have a diverse array of journals in today's session. That's brilliant. So my next question is like, when you receive a new submission, what are the first things that you actually look for? And anyone from the panelists may just jump in to respond.
Okay, I think we'll follow the order and I can go first. This journal is titled Contemporary Education Dialogue. So, of course, we will consider whether the article submitted is contemporary, it can engender dialogue in the research and practice of education. Yes, so primarily what we look for is topicality, criticality in the way that the arguments are built, and relevance to the readers of CED, primarily in terms of the context where the study is situated. Over to you, Jyoti.
Yeah. I think the very first thing is a coherent argument. There should be a question that a paper must have and should have the ability to take that argument further, develop that argument. There needs to be like a genuine voice of the author, also genuine voice of the research which needs to be there. There is a certain form and guidelines which all the journals follow, which I will recommend all the audience here as well as other scholars to go through the guidelines, and also what is it the journal looking for. But usually, if there is a question that an article has and a motivation to take it through different stages of a piece, then it's like it calls for a good readership then by itself. So yeah.
Right. Joyce is also similar. Like like all journalists, I think. What is the contribution to the field? What is new in your article that has not been said previously? What's the new insights that you're bringing? It can be from the result. It can be methodological new insights. It can be theoretical. But why is your study or article interesting and valuable to publish for us in the field of education and international development? But at the same time, we don't so many journals generally require you to embed your sort of study within the field of so in the case of JICE for in comparative education or in education and international development, and cite literature from that field, or particularly from that journal, like particular journal. But JICE doesn't really look for whether the paper is citing the JICE article or not. It's not really important to us. The reason being that, as I said before, we are trying to bring new voices from Global South, and we also, in order for that, we encourage the authors to sort of bring the literature from their own context as well, from in local, probably written in local languages or local literature. So although it is important to have a dialogue with the field scholarship, but we also value the literature being cited from local sources, although it's not a requirement, but just flag up over to you, Yifei.
Yeah, so I think I agree with what the other editors has mentioned already, but I think like maybe one more thing to add is especially like when you are thinking about the submission stage, or when the manuscript just reach the portal and being handed, depending on the journals, whether it's by an associate editor or like in the TPA's case by the co-editors in chief directly. So there would be this, I think, two things. One is the formality check, and also is it in addition, like of course, like so you have to make the critical contributions and add novel insights. But I think first and foremost, also make sure that this is really within the scope of the of what the journal is looking for. So I think the reason why I want to mention that is in many times, and especially now that because we kind of expanded, so we do receive some of the recent submissions. It's not necessarily that the quality of the manuscript is not very well, but they may talk about, for example, a specific aspect of public administration, but with little reference in terms of the teaching and the learning of that specific subject, right? So in that case, like no matter how interesting the manuscript itself is, but it just doesn't fit with our scope. So I think that is something that like you need to as the author, like you need to bear in mind before making the submission to the journal that you are targeting. And maybe in addition to that, I also want to like maybe that's both in terms of like me standing in the shoes of the editor, but also like in the shoes of the author as well, in thinking about how all of these qualities can be aptly demonstrated. So most importantly, I think it's of course the manuscript, but in addition to that, like you will realize that a lot of the journals, I think would require you to submit a cover letter, and at least within TPA, so we do read the cover letters, we do take it seriously, and the reason for that is because that offers the authors an additional opportunity to kind of explicitly demonstrate, okay, so we believe that by submitting it to the teaching public administration, we believe we are making so and so kind of contributions. It's like a brief summary of what the papers are doing, right? So, I mean, it's not like if there is not a proper cover letter, that it's not like a kind of do or die requirement, but I think like if you are able to take this opportunity as an additional opportunity to offer and demonstrate the fitness of scope, so I personally find it quite useful, like in deciding which journal to pass it to the next round, but also as an author, like when I submit like my manuscript alongside a clear cover letter, the result has usually been quite well in terms of passing to the next stage.
Brilliant. So it's very important to understand, like, what the journals are looking for and what is really important in today's time specifically. So my next question is, so what are the most common reasons manuscripts are rejected before peer review? That means during the desk rejection, the desk review. Some papers do get rejected, and what could be the reasons behind it? Again, maybe we can follow the order.
Sure. Um, yeah, I think before we talk about rejection, it is also important, other than the broad fitting into the broad scope of the journal, what are the specific aspects that we look for in a paper before passing on to the next stage? Some journals, as was pointed out by the previous speaker, expect a cover letter. Some journals do not. Cover letter is again a very useful idea to communicate what is it that you want. And in case that doesn't, then there is a first screening process. At CED, when we look at an empirical manuscript, we first see whether it has a robust conceptual or a theoretical framing. Then describing the context adequately is also something that we look for, and whether the manuscript takes a strong analytical approach and provides reasoned out arguments. This was already pointed out by the other panelists. And yes, coherence was also something that was pointed out. And for conceptual paper, we generally look at whether it builds on existing literature adequately, and whether the manuscript is locating the paper within a discipline or a field of study robustly. And again, for conceptual papers and even for empirical papers for that matter, it would be useful to focus on one or two key ideas or phenomena and develop a convincing and cohesive argument or explanation of these. Generally, I have seen some of the PhD students, because they've worked on so much on their thesis, they find it difficult to bring focus into one paper. So I think it'll be useful for you to focus on few key ideas that you want to communicate and do that clearly. And of course, connecting the ideas back to the literature. In terms of what counts for rejection, at least in the at the CED, one is quantitative studies that only look at statistical analysis without drawing any insights from it. This is not to say that we do not value quantitative studies. Of course, we do, but we expect knowledge generation and not just number crunching. Uh, and incoherence is another obvious reason for rejection, and not falling within the scope, of course. And when the discussion section tends to overgeneralize beyond what the data indicates. So these are some of the main reasons why an article gets rejected. Thank you.
Yeah. So to actually add on and to further build from what Maithili is talking about, so sometimes what happens when PhD scholars submit their work, it comes in the form of exactly like a thesis format, or sometimes master's format, or sometimes they are part of some project and the project reports. So it even follows the same categories like objectives, implementations. It's important for authors to go through a journal guideline, see where they want to locate themselves, and then cut through. The problem is not to build from the project. The problem is you need to restructure. It cannot be in the same form of a project and a thesis. When we are talking about a journal piece, which is written for the wider audience, at that time, it's important that you need to have an argument. You provide updated scholarship on them, have your own methods set over there, and see how they all can engage with each other, your data and everything. So that kind of restructuring is very much required. what goes for a reject is like, these judgmental pieces sometimes where one has not engaged with scholarship or any theoretical idea or empirical, but author is already sure about what they are talking about. There is no contradiction in the argument. It's important to have contradiction also, work with the contradiction, develop it further, see where it is going. Then there are diagnostic pieces which are like, complete with this burden of correcting the world, correcting education, and do's and don'ts and everything. So those kinds of prescriptive pieces, completely implementation pieces. So that also is something which goes like a little no kind of thing. uh, Also there are pieces which are like, touch and go, since these are like the condensed form of thesis. So you have like lot of categories, lot of subheadings, and three paragraphs. When you are writing a commentary, specifically for a commentary, it's important that one can be playful in a commentary. It's a shorter piece, have an argument, work through it. In a research article, one is more structured. But even over there, this touch and go thing is something which doesn't work. So when we do a desk reject, we also like try to give a paragraph or something, like how you can, we like the question, we like your argument, but you really need to like make it cohere with what the journal is asking for and resubmit it. So it has happened like sometimes it has happened like twice a paper has gone, but then finally authors also have been able to like work through desk reject, and yes, it has seen the light of the day also.
All right. For cherries, I think some of them are pretty similar, but in terms of formality, it's very easy to reject something that is submitted with, say, 4,000, 5,000 words, where our word count is 8,000, that or exceeds prominently like 1,000, 1,000, no, sorry, 10,000 and or 1,500, 15,000 word count. It's easy for us to reject and not reject, probably unsubmit. We call it unsubmit for authors to kind of restructure and tailor it to follow the guideline. The second point we look for is whether it's fitting the scope of the journal. So in terms of JICE, we are dealing with the area of education development and comparative education. If and specifically from lower and middle income countries. We however receive so many articles that deal with, say, global north countries or worldwide comparison, or even because the JICE is based in Japan, in Hiroshima University. So some articles that they are only in Japanese context, that doesn't sit within the scope of our journal. So do make sure that we read the journal's aims and scope, and to consider whether your study fits the targeted journal. Another point that we frequently find is that in the results section that are presented very descriptively. So for instance, some quotations are presented and one or two paragraphs of what it says about the topic, and then move on to another kind of topic or presentation of quotation without engaging with any literature or theory. So there is no storyline in the results or overall of the article. Then we find it difficult to sort of think why this article is important in considering international development. Another weak point that we quite often find is a paper trying to deal with many theories yes, theory is important, and then bringing it to sort of apply to your results is also important. But presenting, say, 3, 4, 5 theories, and trying to sort of play around with it without really using it in the paper is also we often kind of encounter. So these are the things that we find over to you.
Yeah, so I think, well, maybe I will just make two quick points. The first is that I think like all the situations and the scenarios that the other editors mentioned, I think that would apply well in terms of why TPA desk could reject some of the submissions as well, right? So in terms of the unpacking or not unpacking sufficiently, like the what looks like a dissertation submission, or like or if it looks like a commentary format, or like there is a lot of criticality, but without sufficiently engage or developing the argument in a format that really suits the original research article kind of format of this submission. But maybe like the second point is I want to especially build on what Nozomi mentioned in terms of the distinction between being descriptive versus being analytical, right? Because I think the other common kind of type of rejection that we had is because we focus on the like some of the aspects is about the pedagogy of teaching the discipline and also the broader debates in terms of the teaching and the learning. So we do receive a lot of, for example, the teaching case studies, right? So I mean, we do welcome this kind of like submission in which it describes an empirical setting, and then like and how it informs the teaching and learning aspect of public administration. But I think one of the things that may lead to desk rejection, like most likely, is that it's just simply a description. In other words, like without sufficient answer of this is a case to what, right? So in that, building on that example, so I think it's really like the need for the authors to kind of strike a balance in terms of the theoretical engagement, because on the one hand, you want to substantively and solidly build this case study or build the empirical materials within a kind of like the broader theoretical debates or the scholarly debates that you want to show, okay, so these are the literature and these are the scholarship that my paper builds on, right? So that's one thing. But on the other hand, like it's equally important to show that these are the gaps that I identify from the literature that I intended to fill within my with my original contribution. So that is, I mean, it's a challenging and it's not an easy balance to like strike out. But but it's also important, yeah, for your submission to be judged favorably, right? Because otherwise, like if there's no sufficient demonstration, okay, so these are the literature that I built on, then it easily runs into being very descriptive, right? But on the other hand, that if there's no sufficient development of the gaps, then it lends question to the originality and also to what kind of contributions and the novelty that you are bringing to the debates. So I think, yeah, that is that balance, and if you are not able to strike that balance, so that may be one of the quite frequent reasons to get this rejected as well.
And I think in recent times, even going through desk review is very like challenging, because earlier times I feel that many papers did pass through the desk review and may have been rejected during the peer review. Uh, but now I think even passing the desk review is very challenging and has become very difficult. So with that, I will be asking my final question. That's from my end. If you could leave authors with one key piece of advice that would improve their chances of publications, what would it be? Yes, you can, of course, take a few seconds to process the question.
I think it would be fair for
Maithili, are you
Professor.
going first?
No, I thought it would be fair to invite Professor Yan to go first.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I was just thinking about like the point that Manjuma mentioned that it's becoming more difficult to pass the desk review stage, and I was thinking about like why this happens. So I think like at least for our journal that or maybe just from what there well I don't currently have any like a kind of statistics, but even just from my personal experience, so I think that it might also be the new situation that require us to raise the bar a little bit, which, as you know, that nowadays the submissions that a journal receives like almost kind of like expands like really rapidly, and yeah, so basically, I think the figures that we got for this half year already kind of exceeds like the total submissions from the previous year, and I think the trend is gonna continue because of the expansion and so on and so forth. So in that case, I think that's also maybe the at least for our journal, that's also the practical challenges that we are facing in terms of the like the increasing amount of submission, but limited resources. So that is why I think yeah, it does raise the bar in terms of demonstrating more clearly and more sharply like the contributions and the fit and so on and so forth. So that is why like just coming back to the advice. So I think instead of one, so I think I have the 3 points here. But yeah, but I still would like to share them, like because I think these are like all interrelated. So first of all, like definitely know your own stuff, right? In terms of your research question and your literature, the method, the findings, and like or because you are because if like whether it's more towards conceptual or towards empirical or it's a combination. So I think definitely like it is well, you will have to find a ways to solidly demonstrate that this is your original contribution, and I would rank this as the most important foundation. And then building on that, right, also know the journal that you're targeting at in terms of their recent publications. And the last point is demonstrate the fit, right, so that you are able to like put these two layers together and confidently say that my research actually fits the scope of the journal because then so on so right. So definitely the most important space of demonstrating that is the main manuscript. But as I mentioned earlier, there are also other opportunities to help you, if you want to utilize this opportunity to help you better demonstrate the fit as well. And it's actually like, at least from the editorial side, when we see a clear cover letter alongside the main manuscript, it's kind of helping us to make it easier for us to make the decision as well. Yeah.
Should I go next? So adding to what Ife was just saying, I think one tip that I could give is read some articles that are published in that journal, that targeted journal, and then see what kind of topics and the themes that they are interested in, what kind of styles they are accepting, um, so that you get a feeling of the kinds of articles that they are accepting. You could also approach editors to see whether if you have a draft, you could ask whether it's a good fit for the journal. That's another way you could raise the chance of being accepted. Not accepted, but pass the desk review. Other common tips includes yes, demonstrating the gap in the literature and trying to really clarify what you are bringing in to the debate, and also where is you sitting where is you as the author sitting in that debate, in terms of the contributions and the new insights that you bring in. Over to you, probably Jyoti.
Yeah. Thanks, Nozumi. Ify is talking about a very interesting thing of this saturation. And it is also showing where scholarship is going, where putting the takes and having as many journal publications, which are as much as index. And that is becoming like really picking up today, because of it, there is a saturation. And if I can add another word, there is exhaustion also. When you see the pieces, there isn't like, there are times when there isn't like something new. It's like we are talking about generating the same ideas, same things, and just repackaging it. It's a very standardized form of writing also, which is then coming up. In that context, I feel my one advice to all of us over here, which I keep giving to myself as well, is like, if we believe in this community of thinkers, which journals can really talk about, we just need to read as much as possible and write as much as possible, so that we can develop our own voice. We specifically in our context in India, it's the rote memorization in which we all grow up. So we take writing as something you have all the things inside, and then you have exam and you just write everything. We don't look at writing as a thinking activity also. We don't see writing as something where I can exist as an author. So that voice is very important for all of us as a human, as a thinker. So my only advice is like, we must read and write as much as possible.
Yeah, even at the risk of repeating, I think it is important to repeat these aspects. I think one of the key requirements for a good paper would be to write with passion, to communicate your work with a wider community, having allied interests, keep that in mind, and communicate clearly whatever it is that you want uh, to share. And given the word limit, I think it would be best to choose one or two research questions or key ideas that you want to critically analyze and build your paper cohesively around it. And yes, most experienced editors can nose out AI, so avoid using it for reporting findings and discussions. So your voice that Jyoti was talking about would just not be there. Back to you, Manjuma.
Thank you so much. I think these are very important advice, and at the same time, very important for all of us to actually keep in mind while writing our papers, and also be mindful of, using certain technologies. Or Matley just talked about using AI, but that, we can go towards that question, I think, with the audience. So with this, I open this floor to the audience, and please raise your hand and ask your questions, and, get clarification from the editors. So over to the audience, actually. Yes, Dr. Kaushlendra.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm Kaushland and I work at Room to Read India as a Director Research Monitoring and Evaluation in Delhi office. I'm based in New Delhi, so we have multiple offices across the states. So I, first of all, I really appreciate the kind of panel that you brought here, Manjuma, and very interesting discussion. Yeah, really I enjoyed the conversation. I have a couple of questions. So one is definitely and briefly, Professor Maithili touched upon about AI. So my question is from maybe for all the editors, like in this era of AI, so scholars have started using AI. Sometimes they declare, or sometimes they don't declare. So publication ethics are very critical, and if people are using AI and not their brains for thinking and writing, So, so what I see as an academic or a research person. Earlier, I was in academia. Now I'm in the research sector. So I see that as a risk for the sector. Like if people have started using AI for putting the paper and for getting it published. So my question is, how do you ensure in this current period? How do you ensure that papers are like original and maybe black checks used to be there earlier as well and this time as well, but especially when AI are being used very frequently across the sector. So how do we ensure the publication ethics and maybe quality, or maybe how the sector has started thinking about that if it's not in practice currently? So that's my first question, and would be happy to hear from anyone or maybe all.
I'm happy to get started. The others can please jump in.
Thank you, Professor
As-
Maitli. Yeah.
Yes, this is a important question. See, at CED, we are okay with AI-generated literature review, but with acknowledgement. Um, and as I told earlier, currently, at least at CED, we are relying on our own experience and wisdom to identify if AI is being used for the findings and the discussion sections. So one of the primary things that is essential for any paper is how are you communicating your idea? And is your idea, even if it's not original, if it is trying to add on to an existing idea, are you bringing in your own voice? I think that would be the standard by which we try and visualize. But of course, with AI, even that can be fudged in terms of bringing in your own voice. So, as I said, currently we are only relying on our hunches, which very soon is not going to be enough. So, we will have to come up with a robust policy for ourselves and hopefully tools that can keep up with the pace of the growth of AI.
Thank you, Professor Maitli. Very helpful.
Yeah, I can add to what Maithili said. I think this acknowledgement is a very interesting thing and important also. We do need to acknowledge if we are going to AI also, because it is changing the way scholarship is taking shape, even the way human lives and what are we going to be. But AI is going to stay. And I think it's a very complex question. We can continue to increase the gates, but even today, there aren't softwares and apps that can really make a distinction between human form of writing and AI form of writing. So it's very tough, and only times will tell where we are going. However, I also find this as a movement which can help us go beyond a standardized form of writing and see, sorry, and see, focus on your own voice over there, argument over there. What is it that, as Maithili was saying, passionately believe in? When that is there, it comes out in paper, and when it is not there, one can like actually identify it also. So it's also a moment for all of us in scholarship to affirm the process of writing, and not just harp on standardized form, which we have of late. But today we are entering into time that we cannot, because AI can do it better in terms of generating standardized form of writing. So it's a good moment for us also to revisit some of the things on which we have strongly and sometimes adamantly believed in also in scholarship.
Yeah, very relevant but difficult question. I think that as nobody has a concrete answer. But adding to the colleagues, it is difficult to differentiate human writing and AI-generated writing. But many times AI writing had some like very general comments rather than in-depth thinking that underpins the argument. That is kind of that makes a kind of the writing very weak. We can also identify AI writing when checking the reference list, whether the reference is flawed, sometimes fake references is cited. Then there's no way of verifying it's AI generated or not, but we tend to reject these papers as well. And yeah, own voices where it's a kind of an existential crisis as a researcher if you are relying on AI all the time. But where you as a researcher comes into the paper is I think literature review, yes, can be written in AI, but for now at least the data collection, the methodological rigor needs to be needs to be kind of verified by human researcher. How you present your data and how you engage theory with and data also what I think still the only humans, and then you as a researcher can do. So yeah, the originality, uniqueness, and this comes into how we process the articles and pass it to the next stage.
So thank you, Dr. Nojmi. So just a follow-up question on the response that you shared, and very important response that you have said, that you reject also when you identify that list of references are fake. And so, for example, if someone declares that and gives the acknowledge, I understand that in research community the discussion is already going, and someone has question, for example, can we put AI as in co-author? Or maybe like if we put AI as an acknowledgement. So if someone put AI as an acknowledgement in the paper, that the paper has been written with the help of AI and it's not completely humanly written. So do you accept the paper or reject the paper? Or what's the criteria that you follow at Emerald? Yeah.
Thank you for the follow-up. So your question is, if the author acknowledges the AI, is it okay to have flawed reference or not, or some sign of AI use? Well, I think every journal or publisher has AI policy. And in our case, we are publishing from Emerald publishing company, and their policy is that AI could be used in language related collection, formatting, editing, modifying, but not for creating and then drafting and writing your main sort of argument. And it's if the and yes, author needs to acknowledge that their use of AI, but not for the sort of the gist or the main core argument for the paper. So it's a very broad line, and there is no black and white answer. But all I could say is for now is that AI writing tends to be very weak in making the robust argument in an article, and then that's how all the editors have said in the previous session. It's enough reason to reject with weak argument. Hope that answers.
So
Maybe just a quick follow-up to Nozomi's point in terms of the checking the publishers' guidelines. So I just shared the SAGE's like official policy where you can see that what other things are allowed versus not allowed. Even though I think it's pretty much similar to what Nozomi described about Emory's policy, but maybe like the other thing to think about in terms of I mean, of course, it's a challenge that like everybody, like every one of us are navigating together. But I think, especially, I think the point about allowing the AI to kind of helping you edit the language, provided that you duly acknowledge that, like with a statement in the end of the project. So I like because we recently also started to receive a lot of more submissions from the global south. So actually, that we feel that like for scholars from the global south who actively utilize the AI for those kind of purposes, so at least this can be one of the many aspects that is quite helpful and quite productive in terms of like raising the quality of the writing, right? As compared with say like when you are not previously able to kind of utilize that kind of support. But that said, I think that ultimately it's like it remains the human judgment to see, okay, whether the improvement suggested by the AI makes sense or not, right? So that's still something that like the authors need to figure out themselves. So just this one addition.
Thank you so much. So we still have half an hour left, so please do ask your question.
Maybe I can ask another question meanwhile people are thinking, and then I can apply this opportunity to ask few more questions. So one question I have related to the special issues that journalists publish. So for example, if I'm working in a particular sector and we have lots of documents and even papers that we have presented in the conferences, and or maybe a bigger 10 years project, let's say, and where multiple studies have been conducted for a particular project, and very robust evidence, including the impact evaluations. So, are these journals publish these special issues as well as per request of the authors? Thanks for so much. Okay.
Yeah, so the
What
same
about?
goes for
Yeah.
comparative education studies also. So, in fact, our last issue came up like this only. We had an interest from Max Weber Forum, and an issue came out on pandemic and education, and it came out from one of the SESI conferences itself. So, a panel was there, and then they converted it. So, yeah, I mean, proposals can come, and most of the journals are okay towards it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, what's the question? Is proposal okay to submit?
Yeah, publication of a special issue, Professor Naomi.
Oh, special issue.
Yeah, special issue.
Yeah. We do accept some special issue proposals from potential guest editors. I think we have the format on our website, and you could just fill it in and submit to the journal's email, or you could get in touch with us through the email, and we will take it there from there.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I think for teaching public administration, it's more or less the same, except that, well, I think the difference with CED is that we don't require the sample articles. So basically, sending us the proposal will be more than enough, and then the co-editor in chief in charge of the special issues and goes through the proposal, and then this have an editorial meeting and a discussion, and then we decide whether it's accepted or not. That said, I think and also following what Nozomi mentioned, I think one good tips in terms of enhancing the chance of success for getting your special issue proposal accepted is by looking at some of the recent special issue publications of the journal to just understand, and especially maybe it's a good idea to read both the journal and alongside the call for papers, which is still available on the website, right? So in that case, it gives you a more comprehensive overview in terms of why this special issue is proposed in the first place and how they demonstrate that it is really fitting within the scope of the journal, but also advancing the debates in a certain specific topic. But on the other hand, you can also see that how it subsequently got developed and turned into the final outputs with all these special issue journal articles out. So I think having those kind of references which are available on the journal website and going through them would be helpful to understand the journal's requirements and expectations, in particular with respect to special issues.
Thank you.
Let's hear from other participants. If you're writing your papers and would like to, ask questions to the editors here. Even if you're not considering to submit to these journals, but the writing format and everything is quite similar. So please do ask your questions. It's not all the time that we get to actually interact directly with the editors. Yes.
Hi. Thank you very much. It was very interesting, especially about the AI, because I also think about how much I can use AI or should not use. And then also before submission, I read all those each journal's guidelines and then decided to submit. But then as for writings, I understand if the idea comes from ours and then ask the AI to check the language and fix, and then if we write it down on the paper, it's okay. As for the JICE, for example, that's what it said. So what about the idea itself also? I have this idea, and then a just daily conversation, I would do it with my professor, but if I do it with AI, and then we have a conversation, not just believe whatever the AI said, but AI says something to me, and then I say something back, and then it's like a conversation, and then I feel like that is not really AI's product because I am also put into it, but then I don't feel like 100% come from me. You know what I mean? So that kind of things also I feel like I don't know, it's difficult because it's nice to talk with somebody who is always available, which is AI. Or if it's professors, yeah, maybe he's available, but easy questions as well, and then the idea exchange. I mean, yeah. So that's general what yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all.
so that's a very interesting comment and observation, Hitomi. It also goes back to what Dr. Kaushalendra was talking about while talking of having AI as a co-author, right? I think that's a challenge that we all are going through, and let's see where scholarship goes. Probably those days are not really far off when AI will also sit as a co-author. It's very interesting because it's like another technology, and TechNav was always there, and it's a new form of technology that has come up. So as you are saying, when AI is helping you think as I think all of us are talking about over here, and you are also saying, if it is helping you think and it is helping you retain your idea, take it further, have your voice also, your signature also, it's another technique, and that's what we should take it. In terms of where we are going and all, I find the scholarship of Bernard Stiegler very important. And Bernard Stiegler, he called it a pharmacon. It's a cure and it's also a poison. How we have to like continue to allow this to remain a cure, and for that he made another distinction between adapting and adopting. We need to adopt AI, actually adopt, care for it, and not like extract it and use it, but see it as like a companion, and you also like, sort of care for it and all. However, these are the questions that I think we all are struggling with, and let's see. Hopefully, scholarship gives an answer, and hopefully, our journals also give a framework to engage with these questions. Education needs to have response to this important question that Hitomi is raising. Yeah, thanks, Hitomi.
One interesting paper that I would like to read is, how did your conversation with AI actually refine the questions for you? If you had to think through it on your own, if you had to think through it with your supervisor, if you had to think through it with the AI, was there a difference? I mean, of course, there's a difference in the process, but was there a difference in the way that the ideas themselves emerged, how they refined? What subtle ways did AI push you to ask certain questions that you might not have otherwise asked with your supervisor? It'll make for a good paper. You should think about writing an article on it.
So I totally agree with Mitali's point, and maybe just to kind of further expand and generalize this a little bit. So because the like Gen AI is such a new and current and still ongoing stuff that not a lot of people have like concrete grasp of it. And in fact, like all of us, like everyone here is navigating through this together. So that definitely creates the challenge in terms of, okay, like we are asking about the journal's guidelines and also the regulations, so on and so forth. But on the other hand, I think that at least like from the TPA scope, we also see this as one of the biggest opportunities or like new trendy topics that invites the submission actually, right? So in addition to our recently growing global sales focus, but we on the other hand, we do see that a lot of submissions on the Gen AI as well, and many of them has been very interesting as well, like discussing its application to the classroom settings and also reflections on the ethics and like a human responsibility and so on and so forth. So yeah, definitely. I mean, like if you're able to kind of extract or abstract from this experience a little bit and also engage in the specific literature that you're most familiar or comfortable with. So I think that definitely offers original contributions in terms of how Gen AI can be handled productively, like for the research and like scholarship community. So yeah, I would say definitely that's one opportunity that many of us may wish to pursue in terms of developing journal articles. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting question, and I echo with other editors. We can't stop the use of AI from authors. It's up to you and how much and to what extent you use AI to sort of develop and improve and expand your ideas. Just have a caution in mind that too much dependence, of course, won't benefit you as a researcher. So, but I also use AI to sort of have a conversation with my research idea and yeah, infinite possibilities of using AI's ability to sort of extract literature that we are not aware. So critically use it, but don't depend too much. And the balance is really, there is no set sort of rule. But yeah, we are navigating it together, as Ivan said.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. If others have any questions, and also we have a question on the chat box from Professor Shorb. So if the panelists could look at the question and respond to it. It's regarding special issue.
So yeah, just a quick response, Patrick. Hi. So I don't think one of the ways, yes, as you are saying, they do announce the special issues and all, but the best way is not to wait and write a small concept note and send it to the editors. Because usually, see, there are two ways. There are times when you have something in mind and you also have people who are also interested in the same question. It's like a panel in a conference. That is also a possibility in which one can send these concept notes or a little abstract, which is possible, at least for our journal, that possibility is there. Second is where you have a question and you do want journal also to think around that question. So a concept note can be generated and it can be an open call for papers. And then if you are the one who has sent, you can be a guest editor also for that particular issue. Yeah. So that's what at least we do at Comparative Education Studies.
At the Contemporary
Thank you very much.
Education
Thank you. I really
Dialogue,
appreciate it.
again, it's very similar. So we also have special issues once in a while for which we put out an open call. But we also solicit proposals from interested scholars and practitioners to submit a proposal for a special issue that you would like to guest edit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We do have some doctoral students here and also early career researchers. So if you have questions, if you're writing papers, do grab this opportunity to ask your questions.
So maybe also just a quick comments to Patrick's question in the chat box. So in terms of getting the latest up-to-date information about a special issue, so I think what definitely, like, when a special issue is announced, it's announced through our teaching public policy, like on the website, teaching public administration on the website, right? But on the other hand, we also do have like a LinkedIn account, and also sometimes, like, if the guest editors, like, they are social media active, right? So basically, like, they would they would announce, and we will help them promote the special issue call for papers as well. So yeah, I do want to share the TPA's LinkedIn account here, but then I realized that I'm currently with my VPN off, so it's a little bit tricky. But I'll share it later on, or you can just like search Teaching Public Administration on LinkedIn, and I believe that like maybe many of the other journals would have a dedicated social media account to help spread this kind of news as well. So that might be an additional channel.
Thank you so much.
To add to that, and then respond to Patrick's question, I think it's also beneficial for you to join your like association that your field situates. We generally announce these call for paper of a mailing list. In our case, in comparative and international education, Japan Comparative Education Society, and all these societies. So yeah, joining these mailing lists is a good way. And I think I do see many call for papers through that channel. Although I'm not personally SNS active, but so I don't go to LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. But this mailing list still, I think, serves as the main source of information for this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have 10 more minutes left. Let's hear some questions from the Other participants?
Can I ask one question?
Sure, of course, please.
Okay. Hello. So my name is Diego, and I'm really interested in the conversation. And then I have one question specifically. I'm from Peru. I'm from South America, located in South America, but my background is from economics. So I was working in education. We did some programs and still not evaluated, and I wanted to address this. So my question is that my background is not from economics, and then the approach, the journal approach is from education. So maybe this mismatch is also considering in the evaluation process to accept the paper. And so that's my question. Thank you.
I think most of our papers are interdisciplinary. So just because you're an economist and you're writing in education would not count for a rejection, at least at CED.
Yeah, so same here with the comparative education studies also. In fact, as I was saying initially, it's important that we focus more on the concepts and categories and try to develop them. And they can only develop when we are in a dialogue and conversations with the other disciplines. Education cannot remain in silos, you know. No discipline can, but definitely not education. How education can really be informed and inform other disciplines. That's, I think, is very important to the shape that education discipline is going to take. We are creating more and more gates in scholarship, which I think is only going against the way we generate ideas. So your question is very interesting. At least in our journal, we do welcome. We look at what is the argument and what is it that author is trying to say. In fact, recently there is a paper that came from the legal education, the pedagogy in legal education, which we have just carried out because we felt that it is contributing not just to our journal but to the scholarship in education. So yeah.
Yeah, same here as well. It's perfectly fine to have economics background, but make sure that you tie it with some aspects of education, and also in our case, JAIS in education and international development, that perfectly sits in the scope.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo that because I mean, if we are thinking about the specific, if like being from economics background means that you're using some particular techniques of analysis or like a methods, right? For example, it's a quantitative paper, for example, and that itself doesn't keep you away from submitting to my journal. I think like speak for any of the journals here because like there's also this methodological pluralism in the sense of like accepting both the quantitative or qualitative mixed methods paper, and I especially resonate with this question because I mean like because of the multidisciplinary nature, we also like received previous queries, for example, like coming from a communication studies background, but it's just that the case is within a public sector setting. So does that fit our journal? And then the answer is yes. And then finally the paper got published. But I think the important thing for you to consider when submitting to any of the education journals here is that definitely the literature has to be engaged differently in order, again, like coming back to the earlier conversation about the fitting of the scope, right? So, I mean, like if you have an economics of education paper there, and if you decided that most of the literature that you want to engage is from the economics side, right? So American Economics Review or like JPE, like those kind of economics journal, right? And then you might want to think a little bit harder in terms of why this would fit within an educational studies journal, right? But alternatively, if you're coming like from a different way, right, in thinking about this question right in the beginning, right, even though it's like a economics or maybe quant heavy paper, but here are the specific literatures from the educational studies and that I want to like particularly engage, right? That may be able to help you shape a paper differently that fits better the scope of the educational studies journal rather than a purely economics journal, right? If that makes sense.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We just have 5 more minutes left, so maybe a last question. Or we can also ask the editors if you have anything to conclude this session with, so we could take something from this session and utilize that in our writing.
So maybe I'll just start with this round. So I was just thinking about in terms of I think it being touched upon in the conversation already in terms of presenting your research in a conference or like what we call workshopping your paper before submitting it to a journal. So I think especially as at an early career stage, like I used to find this to be like very useful. I mean, I continue to find this very useful as well. So that might be one last bit of tip in terms of especially for the early career researcher here. And well, speaking of which, like I really appreciate the practice that Nozomi mentioned for your journal in terms of holding workshops, especially for the young researchers. So we at TPA, like we are trying to kind of organize the same, but well, depending on the timeline, the first one might will not be able to come until like early next year. But having said that, right, there are other opportunities, like not journal specific ones, but if you go to the specific conferences and also the like, for example, someone organizes a special issue workshop. So these are all the opportunities that you can utilize. And within the conference setting, I would especially recommend those conferences that dedicate like one day or like half day to PhD scholars in particular, right? So at least the UK Association for Public Administration, like our parental organization, does that, right? And the reason why this will be extra useful is because instead of just getting 10 minutes to present your research, right? So there is like a lot of dedicated time, like 30 minutes or even 45 minutes, for which the focus is entirely on your paper and like to developing it better, like sharpen the argument, etc. And also by both your PhD peers, but also like the more senior scholars. So this kind of opportunities, I would say that I would find it very useful, like for early career researchers. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So my last words are going to be, whenever a paper gets rejected or it comes for major revision, probably it's not like an indication of the fact that it is something terribly missing or terribly weak in a paper. Sometimes it doesn't match with the journal. So it's also important to see where are we sending and what are we sending. Second, specifically again in our context, at least in the South Asian context and Indian context, we don't know how to take a critique also. We use a word feedback now, but even when a feedback comes, we have a tendency to look at critique as all negative. And I mean, it gives chill down the spine to see, oh my God, so many comments have come. But it's also an indication that somebody is interested in your work. And so he's spending time writing all of this. So my piece of advice would be that we must read as much as possible, spend some time writing every day, develop an argument, and that's an advice which I'm giving to myself also while giving it to everyone here, and develop a sensibility towards a critique which is not really towards all negative and all, but see what is it that you can take and what is it that you don't want to take. So yeah, thank you.
Just very quickly from Professor Maitli and Professor Sakata. So if you could just, because it's already 6.
Yeah. In fact, echoing what Jyoti said, as editors, we've been at the brunt of receiving some really nasty comments from authors whose papers we have rejected. So I think that's important to keep in mind, that a review is actually a great way for you to improve your writing. So I've been really wrapping my head around AI ever since one of the participants asked the question. Um, See, there is also immense joy in writing a paper. You know, you may not agree with me as young career researchers or PhD scholars, but the process of iterating on an idea and writing it up, getting good reviews for it, and then attending to the reviews. I mean, if you don't agree with the reviewers' comments, you can always rationalize why you think you are right and you don't want to change your ideas or some of your arguments based on what the reviewer has commented on. So that only means that you need to strengthen your argument further. And I feel AI just zaps you of all these little uh, joy that you can get out of writing a good paper and seeing it to publication. Irrespective of whether folks read or not, the process of ideating and seeing a paper that is published is definitely very gratifying.
Yeah, just very quickly. I think enjoy writing, assuming that most of the participants here are early career researchers and students. It's don't perceive that status as a weakness. We actually look for new voices, and the field has moved to sort of diversify the epistemological, methodological, theoretical kind of expanded to sort of involve different ways of knowing, and this is something early career researchers and students researchers can bring in, because sometimes established scholars talk the same thing in a different way over and over again. But it is these new scholars who kind of bring some really new interesting insights. So please don't be afraid and enjoy writing.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks to the editors. Thanks to the audience. Thanks for joining this session today. And I hope that, you have been able to take away something from today's session. I wish you all the best, and do, keep looking for a size listening series. We will be coming with more sessions like this. So all the best and take care. Don't take stress for writing papers. Thank you.
Very
Thanks.
much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay,
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.